40 years ago, we opened our doors with one mission in mind.
We'll be right back with the top 10 songs of 1983.
To sell quality American-made vehicles at a fair price.
You have arrived.
And we've loved every minute of the ride. Celebrating 40 years of Two Rivers Ford.
Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. How's morale, kids? First night of the NFL draft concluded. Not quite the fireworks that maybe people were expecting, but a player added that immediately improves this football team. We're going to talk about the Titans' first-round pick, Peter Skoronski. Everything that went down at the facility last night, I was there throughout the course of the first round. Mike Vrabel, Rand Carthon. We got Peter on Zoom from a pizza place somewhere outside of Chicago. He would not divulge the name of the pizza place. So I do not have those details. That is going to require some investigative reporting. He refused to give the name for some reason. But either way, he's a Tennessee Titan. And I know that you guys are excited to talk about this. Jump in if you want to, 615-737-1045, your reaction to what it is that the Titans did or did not do in the first round. Because it got a little wonky last night, but I think not in the places that people expected. But for all the, the jokes that I made yesterday, and, a little bit of truth behind every joke, where I was laying out the worst case scenario. And I said, well, the worst case scenario is that they come out of this situation with a backup quarterback solution that does not immediately improve what they have on the roster. Because I think they need something way more solid behind Ryan Tannehill. And last night afforded them potentially the opportunity to do so. Now, tonight could potentially afford them the opportunity to do so. And the way that the draft board broke down was fun to watch at the top of it because you knew that Bryce Young was going to go, and they take the full however many minutes. What is it, 7 minutes in the first round that they get for the first round picks?
No. Is it 7?
No, I have the rules somewhere in my email. I just was looking them over tonight to make sure I knew how long or how short each round was to kind of time things out. Let's see. 10 minutes. 10 minutes to make their pick in round one. So they take the full 10 minutes, even though they traded up a while ago, and we all know they're going to take Bryce Young. So Houston was the question, and they go C.J. Stroud, trade back up with Arizona at 3 to get Will Anderson, and the Colts go Anthony Richardson at 4. So almost immediately you're taken out of the quarterback draft in the ways that you thought you might be. And we'll have time to talk about what happened there later on in the show. And Paris Johnson Jr. goes a couple of picks later, 6 as a matter of fact, to Arizona, who needed some strength on the offensive line and, previously had Dennis Daly penciled in as starter. So now they get Paris Johnson from Ohio State. Bijan Robinson to Atlanta at 8 was a lot of fun. And immediately you could see the Philadelphia Eagles jonesing to get in on Jalen Carter, which they were able to trade up and do. Chicago goes Darnell Wright at 10. And Peter Skoronski, who many people have as the best graded offensive lineman in this class, including Dane Brugler, who I believe at this point to be the foremost scouting expert that we have on a mainstream platform, Peter Skoronski lands to the Titans at 11. Now, he's not a quarterback, and I know many of you wanted one. The last couple of weeks, about 3 weeks in particular, I think really seemed like that was a possibility, and they did try to make it happen. Now, they got foiled, but even in doing so, ended up with a really good player. To add depth and competition to their worst position group on the team is not the offensive line, even after the additions of Dillard and Brunskill in free agency. I felt that was still the worst position group that the Titans had on the roster heading into last night's draft. And by the way, I don't think that taking Skoronski in round 1 should stop them from taking another offensive lineman. I think that there are needs all over the board, and we'll see how this continues to break out, and we'll have time to talk about what lies ahead tonight and then tomorrow for the Tennessee Titans with their currently remaining 5 picks. But they get Skoronski, and immediately helps both of the things that they need to do. They need to run the football better. They need to have a better support system around Derrick Henry for him to be the best version of himself. And for him to age however much longer he's with the Tennessee Titans, for him to be able to age as gracefully as humanly possible for that position and get every last ounce of potential out of your best player. You also need to keep the quarterback upright. And that is something that he did, Skoronski, exceptionally well in 2022. Absolutely dominant as far as the pressures and sacks that he did, or rather did not allow, throughout the course of an entire season. Titans were 5th worst among NFL teams last year when it comes to sacks allowed, and many, many more pressures beyond that. But what they did last night solidifies that and puts them in a really, really good position for foundational pieces that immediately help what they have on the roster. Sex appeal? No, but that's okay. You've never been a sexy team. Why start now? Even as the quarterback propositions, there are still a couple out there, and we'll have time to get to that. But even as the quarterback propositions at the top of the draft might have seemed super enticing, this is still something that immediately makes your football team better and is a best-case scenario for the worst position group that they had.
You referenced Dane Brugler's analysis. Would you like to hear his one-sentence summation of Peter Skoronski?
A one-sentence summation, please do.
Rated for Brugler, a first-round prospect, the number 7 overall prospect, and a very wide gap between Skoronski and the second-best guard in this draft class. Brugler classifies him as the number 1 guard because he separates guards and tackles. Says, overall, Skoronski falls below the arm-length threshold to stay at tackle for several NFL teams, but he is a technician with impressive balance and strength to reposition his hands and feet mid-engagement. Though he should get a chance to stay outside in the NFL, he's an immediate NFL starter inside at guard/center with a Pro Bowl ceiling.
He's violent. He's physical. He's explosive. And his arms are a little shorter than the average tackle might be. This was Mike Vrabel talking about Skoronski in particular, and I had asked the two of them where they kind of saw him, whether that was at tackle or guard. They said we're going to get him on the offensive line and see how things play out. But this was Mike Vrabel specifically speaking to the arm length question.
Great footwork. He's square, plays square. He's strong. You can watch some of these clips, and these are 280-pound guys, 270-pound guys rushing on the edge or blocking down on a 3 technique, and he gets his hands on you. They for the most part, they don't go very far, and I think he uses his mind. I mean, he's intelligent. There's a lot of things you can do to make up for not having 35-inch arms, which very few tackles have. And so it's angles, it's strength, it's body control, it's playing square, and being able to move his feet.
So that's Mike Vrabel talking about how he compensates for what the lack of length might be, going through the list of things that also Lucas just described or read in Dane Brugler's description of Peter Skoronski, the Northwestern tackle, potentially guard that the Titans took with the 11th overall pick last night. 615-737-1045 is how you react. Phone lines are popping, but there are still some available if you want to get in. Coach Mack will be here, of course, on the Titans radio broadcast last night. He will continue coverage with Titans radio and that entire crew for rounds 2 and 3 tonight. He'll join us at 11:20 to discuss and break down this pick in greater detail. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Night 2 of the NFL Draft. We got it coming up in a few hours. Titans radio crew going to be back on the broadcast. 6 p.m. is when the NFL Draft gets going tonight, rounds 2 and 3. We'll talk about what the Titans are going to do a little later on. And don't forget, Coach Dave McGinnis will be here at 11:20, as is the Friday custom, and always timely after the first round of the NFL Draft. Peter Skoronski is the selection. What are your thoughts? 615-737-1045 before we dive into how the AFC South shaped the entirety of last night's draft. I got tipped off to the Texans thing probably about a half hour before. I'll let you in on how that came to pass here in just a little bit. But first, let's get to you guys. How about Gil in the great state of California calling us this morning? Hey, Gil.
Hey, Buck, what's going on, brother?
How we living?
Oh, good. I just feel the Titans are in a good place now, and I like the fact that they were willing to go up, try to get the quarterback, but since they didn't, they went and got the offensive lineman, so that means we're not tanking. We're going to hold Tannehill upright. Hopefully we can get a receiver and a tight end, and if Tannehill doesn't work out, we've shown the willingness to go up. Maybe we can make a package and get the best thing coming out of college next year.
So are people thanks for the call, Gil. Is that a prevailing thought today? That, hey, they didn't get the quarterback, but they tried. There was evidence that they tried. I was told until Houston decided they wanted to go 2 and 3, which came down pretty late, that the Titans had the most compelling package put together for Arizona. And you saw did you see the Mike Florio thing about DeAndre Hopkins that was pretty quickly refuted by Ian Rappaport, that the Titans had explored a situation with Arizona to also include DeAndre Hopkins coming to Tennessee. And that was something that was put out by Pro Football Talk, and I think maybe 15, 20 minutes later, Ian Rappaport said, Titans have had conversations about trading up with Arizona, among other teams, which was notable, but none that had involved DeAndre Hopkins.
And I wonder if the interest in Hopkins has not been great, because Monty Austinfort was in front of a mic the other day saying, he's a Cardinal.
Monty was wheeling and dealing last night, man. They were moving around.
Cardinals have to be happy.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, that's what they needed to accomplish around both that draft pick in particular and Kyler Murray to give him the best possible chance to succeed with what they were able to pull off and get Houston to come up. And let's talk about the idea of kind of settling, because I don't like that term for today, but I do feel like there was a portion of the fan base that was interacting last night. You know, it's raw, it's fresh, it happens in real time. You thought, for basically days at this point that you were going to get a quarterback out of this, and you come away with a tackle that's potentially a guard. And how much work they did in the lead up to actually go up and get the quarterback, but biting on the smoke screen that Houston wasn't going to take the quarterback at 2. Because to me, and I'll expand on this later, probably in the noon hour, I came out of that feeling like they got, but also that they addressed a critical need and improved their football team in a meaningful way. Because I think both things can be true from last night.
And at the same time, who held more cards in that situation, the Texans or the Titans?
Oh, the Texans.
Texans had so many more avenues.
Infinitely.
To get that done than the Titans did. So when you could say they got that the Texans won that battle for a quarterback at 3, but the Texans had an inherent heavy advantage to get that done.
It was always, but we knew that. It was always going to be difficult for them to pull this off. And they tried, and they didn't get it. And so they go best player available, which also satisfies a need at the weakest position on the roster, and everybody comes away feeling like, okay, like that. Solid, comfortable, necessary, just different descriptors that pop into your head when you think about functionality and dominance on the offensive line for a team whose identity was always going to be that anyway. So they can get and you can like the effort to go up and get the quarterback, even if you don't like the result. I just don't know how many people feel the way that Gil do and saw that, but came away thinking, oh, at least they tried, Pat on the butt, Rand. Good job out of you. At least you gave effort. A for effort. even if you didn't get it. Chris in Clarksville is next. Hey, Chris.
Hey, guys. How you doing this morning?
Good.
Awesome. So I like the Skoronski pick overall. Like, I know a bunch of Titans fans were wanting something a little bit more exciting, especially as rumors started coming out that they were looking to trade up for a quarterback. But Skoronski feels a need. Like, this offensive line was trotting out Dennis Daly for the better part of, for really actually the worst part of last year. And it's safe to say that we definitely are able to say that we can improve off of that. So I like the Skoronski pick. It's not the flashy pick, but it definitely fills a need. And if they can come away tonight with a guy like Darnell Washington, a tight end, or a receiver like Tyler Scott or Marvin Mims, Titans fans can get really excited about how they're retooling this offense. And I'll go ahead and let you guys discuss that. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for the call, Chris. Yeah. I feel the exact same way. There's so many fun skill players left. And, where we thought how many tight ends might go in the first round versus how many tight ends actually went in the first round, where the wide receivers went as opposed, and which wide receivers went in the top of the draft, basically the names that we had all discussed over and over again. But the Stroud thing rings true to me in the way that we knew almost definitively, not just because of what the Texans are right now or what they were prior to last night's draft and where the rest of the AFC South fell in last night's first round, that they could not afford to pass on a quarterback. And so everything that they did in the lead up, and I think, Lucas, I can't remember if it was you or Bert that brought this to attention. By the way, who had a better day than Bert yesterday? He's not here for work because he's doing, something involving his buddies, and, I don't want to disclose too much information, but he's not here for one of the most important weeks of the year for the show, which I'm not necessarily thrilled with him about. But not only is he not here, but he's celebrating in our group text last night because Lamar Jackson gets a deal and he gets my draft crush to go to the Baltimore Ravens and Zay Flowers. I'm very upset with Bert today.
I'll tell you who had a better day than Bert. Lamar Jackson.
I know.
Had a much better day than Bert.
By extension.
Got his money and got his weapons.
5 years for Lamar Jackson. Yeah, wait, that didn't even make the show rundown today, Lamar's deal, because so many things have happened. That C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson are both in the AFC South with Trevor Lawrence at this point, and Tennessee, 2 quarterback options. More than 2 quarterback options theoretically on the board, but 2 viable quarterback options on the board. And am I considering Will Levis a viable option anymore? Because the rest of the NFL looked around and said, this toe thing. I know we talked about injuries with him last season. That was the first that I had heard that the medicals were that concerning. Hell, the lead up for 2 weeks in the draft was that Indy might take him at 4 with Levis. We'll talk about him specifically later on, too, because technically, that's still in play. But C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson, 2 and 4 to the Colts, or Texans and Colts, respectively. It does, on paper, feel like a lot to overcome twice a year on a regular basis. But they're not done yet. And I don't, for as much as I like the idea of Anthony Richardson, and I do think that Indianapolis, with the coaching staff, the new coaching staff, is uniquely equipped to get the best version of him, I don't necessarily think that's a roster that's ready to support how much help he's going to need early on. And I don't know how patient the owner's going to be when it comes to sitting him behind Gardner Minshew for how many games. Imagine looking at your football team as an NFL owner, even if you're a normal NFL owner, not even Jim Irsay, and seeing Gardner Minshew on the field and somebody the size, the athletic ability, and just, what he projects to be potentially sitting on your bench while Minshew dinks and dunks his way down the field against the Jags in week 4 or whatever. It's as compelling as the division's ever been, though, at least in recent memory. When's the last time the AFC South was this interesting?
Oh, that's a great question. Andrew Luck and Deshaun Watson.
Luck and Watson is probably the last time. And Bortles had the season, right? The AFC Championship run. So there was a little bit of that in there, and I think that was a competitive Titan season. I think that was 16. Was that
I believe that was the 17 season.
So Titans were frisky too. Yeah, that's probably been the last time that the AFC South was this kind of interesting.
Texans were always going to take a quarterback up there.
Oh, that's been the resounding, the way that people in the Texans organization are celebrating, not just privately but publicly today, and a lot of it at the expense of the Titans, which we'll talk about at noon. Yeah, they felt like they got one over on a couple of different people, including the local professional football team. Vols apologist calling us from the borough up next. What's happening?
Yeah, Buck, I think you're right when you said settle isn't the word, right? Slump buster is the word.
Love that.
It's like when you're in your early 20s, right? You struck out, you're on a bit of a cold streak with the sexy pics, right? So you end up leaving the bar with the 40-year-old chain-smoking divorcee, right? You get your confidence back up, you get your feet back under you, and you move forward from there.
Wait, you mean to tell me that Skoronski is a 40-year-old longtime smoker? That is the metaphor that you're making here.
It's comfortable, right? Yeah, it's not sexy.
It's
but,
comfortable.
At the end of the night, it's doable. It's doable. So, appreciate it, guys. Love the show.
I mean, it's not the worst slump buster. I didn't think he was going. I thought I was ready for a baseball analogy, and then I ended up with an offensive lineman who's a 40-year-old smoker at a bar late night. Love that. Will in Nashville next. Hey, Will.
Hey, Buck. First thing I was going to talk about is, earlier you were talking about how important it was to have somebody come in and make an impact right off the bat.
Yep.
And I think that this guy can do that. So I think that's important. And something, too, that's not really, he probably won't have a super impact on the field, but it's kind of cool that his dad or his grandfather was who he was and is like a Hall of Famer and knew Lombardi. So that part is kind of cool. But, I don't think that's, probably not going to have any effect on the field, but kind of neat.
Thanks for the call, Will. I did get an email. We have many, information emails and releases and draft questionnaires and all kinds of other stuff from last night. But there was something in my email this morning specifically about Skoronski's grandfather and the connection there.
Won 5 NFL championships with the Packers.
Yeah, so 5 NFL championships with the Packers. Bob is a member of the Packers Hall of Fame. Bob Skoronski, the grandfather, under Vince Lombardi, military veteran who missed 2 seasons following his rookie year to serve in the Air Force. That's wild. This is an email from somebody at USAA, I believe, because Skoronski had a pre-draft situation where that was a part of the storytelling. Man, that's wild.
I mean, we talk about Mike Vrabel and the Titans, and they want guys that love football, right? I mean, Peter Skoronski, football family. He went to Northwestern because he became a Northwestern fan in high school. He was a 4-star prospect. He had offers from all over the place.
Did you hear what he said last night about Vandy?
Oh yeah, that he was in.
So
Vandy catching a stray last night.
We ask Skoronski. It's typical of these kind of things. Hey, just because they're real excited. We're not going to ask a bunch of hardcore football questions. They're going to fly him in today. We'll probably have a press conference tomorrow, I would imagine, at some point with him in the next couple of days. But Skoronski had said that we asked him the last time if he's ever been in Nashville. He said, yeah, one time for a visit with Vandy on a recruiting visit.
He said he was
Vandy.
here for like 24 hours.
Because the immediate follow-up was, how much did you how seriously did you consider Vanderbilt? And he just kind of laughed and said, not very.
not that much, to be honest.
Not really.
But he was a Northwestern fan in high school. He's Northwestern's highest-rated recruit in their history. I mean, a 5-star prospect by some accounts, and the only one of those Northwestern's ever had.
What do you think this means for Ryan Tannehill? Because I think, I mean, tonight is fascinating, especially given the drop of Levis and Hooker, who fell out of the first round as well. I think that Ryan Tannehill projects to be certainly the starter this year, and I don't think there was any disputing that, even as we got later in the draft process, and the availability discussions around him kept popping up every so often and things like that. But I do think that Ryan Tannehill has a better chance of being the starter into future Titans seasons as we sit here today. But the draft's not done, and they could very well find a solution behind Ryan Tannehill tonight that's not Malik Willis. I think for Skoronski, ultimately, the guard situation makes the most sense. I'd rather see Dillard try and fail at left tackle before I made that move to put Skoronski out there. I'd rather him have as much time as humanly possible getting comfortable on the inside and getting those reps. But I asked Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon about that last night. And what they said was basically, yeah, we'll put him out there on the offensive line. Training camp is when those things will work itself out. And we'll see what kind of competition or where the competition best avails itself. And that was the plan that was the approach they took last year with Dylan Radins. Radins was the starting right tackle until he wasn't. And so where they start Skoronski versus where they start Dillard, one would assume left tackle and left guard for Dillard and Skoronski. I think that I would rather them see, since they paid Dillard the money and since that's the best possible value play, and you're hedging your bets a little bit with Peter, I think that would be the preferred method of, bleep around and find out.
And that's what Dillard has in mind, to come here and be the starting left tackle.
Sure. And that, that is what the length of the deal and the financial terms of the deal indicate. You have the opportunity to be the Tennessee Titans starting left tackle and potentially do better for yourself than this contract that we've put in front of you immediately allows for. But also, just so you know, we got options. And Skoronski is not just a starting option at guard. He's potentially a starting option at left tackle.
So the Titans' best five, as it stands on the offensive line, understanding there could be shuffling, especially between Dillard and Skoronski.
In a perfect world today, Dillard, Skoronski, Brewer, Brunskill, and PF.
Yeah.
Based on what's on the roster right now. Now, maybe Ruse or Levin, they factor in some way. We're penciling in Aaron Brewer in ways that, I don't think the Titans are doing by any stretch of the imagination. I think that's why that's a big part of the reason they brought back Levin on a one-year deal.
Dylan Radin still under contract.
How crazy it is that I didn't even think about him. And like that sounds I didn't mean to sound like a jerk, but like I don't even consider Dylan Radins anywhere within the we haven't talked about Dylan Radins once. Now, the late-stage ACL tear, I honestly think is a bigger reason for that.
Yeah, that's fair. He's not going to be available for quite a while.
He's just, and
that was in December.
And even when he's out there, like, I have no idea at what point that he's going to be comfortable on his knee, whether it's a Lawan situation, a Bud Dupree, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I haven't even thought about him.
That would be mid to late season if he's able to come back.
Yeah, because he's a PUP, like, training camp guy.
You're right. So he does not factor in at training camp.
No, I would not think so. Will in Los Angeles up next. Hey, Will.
Oh, yeah. Hey, how are you guys?
Good.
Good. First off, I want to wish a happy birthday to my wife, Jenna, who turned 30 today. Thank you. And also, I think we dodged a bullet.
To him. I don't care. Good luck.
Happy birthday, Jenna.
But I think we dodged a bullet. I think you have question marks on all three of these quarterbacks that were taken in the first round. You have Bryce Young, who has size issues. C.J. Stroud had a terrible S2. And then you have Anthony Richardson, who's a project. And as much as maybe I would have liked to have seen Stroud, do I want to give up a first-round pick next year, maybe a second and a fourth this year to go up and get him when a position of need was available and we got the best player to take that position of need in the draft and he fell to us? I mean, that's just so rare in the first round of the NFL draft that we were able to do that. And not only that, we have 4 players on the offensive line that can play multiple positions now, and Skoronski also played center. So I think it's a win-win, and I think we kind of dodged a bullet because I don't necessarily know if any of these quarterbacks are going to pan out in the future. I think there's big question marks on all of them.
I'm unfamiliar with the experience at center. I'm pretty sure he was dropped in at left tackle as a freshman after Slater opted out.
Slater opted out in the COVID year in 2020.
So,
and Skoronski comes in, and he's a freshman All-American.
Yeah, because he was a 3-year starter at left tackle, so maybe there's a high school experience that I'm missing out on. Either way.
I mean, he doesn't even have much guard experience, he said. Hardly any.
No, in fact, can we hear that clip? Let's hear from Peter Skoronski, the Titans' first-round pick. Well, we have SEC stat of the day. I don't want to step on your toes because I know it's draft related. Let's hear from Peter Skoronski about the idea of potentially playing guard after having the vast majority, if not all of the experience at left tackle.
I'll be completely honest. I don't have a ton of experience at guard, especially at the college level. I know that things happen a lot faster, especially, in pass rush for sure. So it'll be a timing thing for sure. I think that'll challenge me. So I think, obviously not a ton of experience, but, ready to learn anywhere and just adapt to whatever position I'm at. But I guess I'll learn that as I go in the process.
So, you're trusting the projection and that it's easier to do that from left tackle to left guard than it would be like they tried with Radens, right? Left tackle to right tackle or left tackle to inside, and it didn't necessarily pan out that way. 615-737-1045. That's how you join the conversation. We'll get more of your phone calls reacting to the Titans' first-round selection of offensive tackle or potentially guard Peter Skoronski, and an SEC stat of the day coming up next. Welcome back to the show. Titans on the clock later tonight. Next up, 41st overall as we sit here today. Taking Peter Skoronski, 11th overall, but we got to stick with the custom, even though it's the day after the draft. We'll get back to the phone calls day after the first round anyway. And Coach Mack will join us at 11:20 to break it down. We'll get back to your phone calls momentarily, but we have to do a stat of the day.
The SEC did not make the history that we thought it would last night. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Multiple or more than 2 first-round quarterbacks from SEC programs, yes?
Yeah, we thought that was basically a shoo-in, right? Basically,
yeah, if you're betting the draft, you thought that was house money between Levis, Richardson, Young, and Hooker.
We thought, hell, maybe 4. They could double up on that. They didn't. 2 SEC quarterbacks taken. They go in the top 5, and then Levis and Hooker slide. Thankfully for Hooker, he was not in the building. Will Levis, I believe, I don't think you can leave. So, like,
once you're in there,
yeah,
you're in there.
When you're in the green room, like, I don't think you're allowed to leave until you're drafted.
It's
so
unpleasant.
Levis probably had to stay the night in the same clothes. His family can leave; they can go back to the hotel. But like, I think that should be the rule that if you are a potential draft pick, and you want to go to the draft and sit in the green room. If you are not taken in the first round, you're not allowed to leave.
I thought you meant during the broadcast.
No,
like
no,
you
no.
couldn't physically. What?
No,
you're trying to imprison Will Levis in the green room.
You're not allowed to leave until you're drafted. You sleep on that couch. That's the rule, right?
Have you seen what is it, Terminal with Tom Hanks, where he's sleeping in the airport? He's like stranded. He can't get a visa into the U.S. He's from another country. He's stuck sleeping in the airport. You want to do that to Will Levis?
I want Levis to get drafted in the second round and a camera on him stumbling out of the green room like disheveled. He's been in there for like 48 hours.
You see him walking into the bathroom with a sad little dop kid. He's brushing his teeth and coming out afterwards.
Also, Will Levis constantly surrounded by women, like 5 different women. Like I feel like he had his arm around, and I know one of them was his mother. I imagine one was his sister.
I'm sure there was his sister.
I imagine another was his girlfriend.
Mm.
But I felt like he had a different woman either in his lap or his arm around a different woman every time the camera was on him.
Well, for all that, he's going to have decidedly less if he doesn't go tonight.
Anyway, 9. 9, the number of SEC players taken in the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft. 5 out of the top 10, half the top 10 out of the Southeastern Conference. Who was second? Who was second out of Power 5 conferences and players drafted last night?
ACC?
It was the Big Ten. Big Ten had 8. The Big 12 had 6. The ACC had 5. The Pac-12 had 3.
Really, that few?
Only 1 former Tennessee player taken. We thought that might be a little bit of history as well, as Darnell Wright goes in the top 10 to the Chicago Bears. They trade back 1 spot and pick up the right tackle. First top 10 pick for Tennessee football since...
Oh, not Eric Berry.
It's Eric Berry.
Is it Eric Berry?
Number 5.
Okay.
In 2010.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I mean, that's still, that's a considerable amount of time.
Yes, it is. And that's also the last time we had multiple Tennessee players taken in the first round. It was Eric Berry, and then Dan Williams was a late first-round pick, the defensive lineman to the Arizona Cardinals. Did not have quite the career Eric Berry did.
Because Darrell Taylor was a second-round pick,
Seahawk,
right?
yes. He was a second-round pick. There hadn't been a Tennessee, can you tell me the last Tennessee first-round pick? We've talked about this.
The last Tennessee first-round pick? Oh, we have done this recently.
Derek Barnett in 2017.
Okay, but that's still a while ago.
Yeah, 14th overall to the Eagles.
All right.
So you thought that might be a little bit of history there, too. If Hooker got scooped up, maybe Hyatt snuck in there. I thought there was a real shot that last pick of the first round, the Chiefs, who need receiver help, would maybe take a Jalen Hyatt, but he'll be available on day 2. They end up taking a pass rusher. Georgia and Alabama with 3 players taken apiece. Tennessee with 1, Florida obviously with 1, and Mississippi State with 1. Emmanuel Forbes gets taken in the first round. So the Philadelphia Eagles are just slowly transitioning into the Georgia Bulldogs.
Why not?
Why not? Hey,
why not?
They're taking
championship defense. Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter last night in the first round is wild.
Yeah, and then when they put up that graphic and they show all the former Georgia players on that defense, I'm reminded that Nakobe Dean fell to 83 last year.
He was at Nolan Smith's draft party. Did you see that?
Oh, they're all boys.
Well, sure.
And Nolan Smith was up, and this was before, the report that Jalen Carter was on the scene at the night of that car crash, at the night of the national championship celebration in Athens. Remember that leaked right before Carter was supposed to step to the podium.
I mean, literally
at the combine.
10 minutes before.
But Nolan Smith was at the podium before that, earlier that morning, had a big crowd, and he was caping up for Jalen Carter.
Mm-hmm.
He was standing up for his guy, for his teammate. Now they are once again teammates in Philadelphia. They're going the Washington Commander football skins route of Washington for a while is just drafting Bama players on defense.
On defensive line specifically.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Daron Payne just got paid. Jonathan Allen, a member of that D-line. They had Landon Collins on that team. They had a ton of Alabama players.
Did they draft Landon Collins? The Giants drafted Landon Collins, and then Dan Snyder, I think, gave Landon Collins a big old deal.
They ended up with him. I think Jaron Reed maybe was drafted by the Washington Commander football skins, but... Yes.
I love that we do that now.
Well, and it applies
and then it
here.
rolls so fluidly off the tongue.
It applies here because, honestly, I have no idea what they were when they drafted Daron Payne. I have no clue. I do not know what they were.
That's a great question.
They were the Redskins, the football team, the Commanders. I have no clue. I don't think they were the Commanders
What was
quite
the
yet.
Washington football franchise called at the time of this particular draft pick?
Great sports trivia, by the way. But, yeah, so the SEC is the Power 5 conference with the most amount of draft picks last night. Just by one, they do take half of the top 10, and Georgia and Alabama, no surprise, lead the way with 3 picks apiece.
Shocking to nobody.
No.
615 set. We'll get to Levis here in a second. Because people were very, very quick, almost immediately. And I love that you guys are this thorough, and I love that this many of you listen to the radio show this thoroughly, but very many people were quick to throw my Levis opinion back in my face last night after he fell out of the first round. So we'll talk about him here in just a minute. But let's go to Dan in Chicago up next. Hey, Dan.
Hey, 23-year fan here. And I got to say, it was actually refreshing to see them select a very smart pick last night. I watched them many times try to draft a first-round quarterback, plug them in a system, and then only for them to fail. And to see how many pressures Tannehill got last season, how Derrick Henry couldn't push through that front line, getting Skoronski, I think, is the key piece. And I honestly think they were bluffing. I honestly think Vrabel was running the show last night and kind of took his guidance, created some rumors beforehand, and got Skoronski where they needed him. So I think it was probably the best pick they could have gotten last night.
I will disagree with you on Skoronski being the player that they wanted. They tried to get up there for the quarterback, and they didn't. They got gaslit. But that's fine. They seem completely happy. I mean, you can debate the merits of how fine it is when we're 3 years down the road and how many divisional titles the Texans and the Colts have won next to the Titans with these 2 quarterbacks who are now in their division, and, of course, Trevor Lawrence existing there. So, no, the plan all along was not Skoronski, but that is a player that they certainly were willing to take and were happy to take after the quarterback thing fell through.
And did not expect to be available at 11.
No, I was frankly surprised to see Arizona go Paris Johnson that high, but when you consider team need and positional value, I suppose you can make it make sense. But the third offensive lineman off the board for, by consensus, the best technical player at that position in this draft, again, settling is not the right word, and I don't want to use it. It is Vols apologists called it a slump buster, and that might just be what it is. We'll get to more of your phone calls, and we'll talk about Will Levis, whose night did not go the way that he wanted it to, coming up next.
It is 11:01. Good morning from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The first round of the NFL draft is in the books. With the 11th pick, the Tennessee Titans selected Northwestern offensive lineman Peter Skoronski. Mike Vrabel spoke with Titans media about the selection on Thursday night.
We're getting a fantastic player, a physical player, a violent player. He's got versatility, and those are things that we covet. And with the durability, I know when he grabs people, most of the time they stop moving. So that's really a good thing for an offensive lineman.
The AFC South made headlines last night. The Houston Texans taking quarterback C.J. Stroud with the second pick and then trading back into the top 5 up to 3, taking Alabama edge rusher Will Anderson. The Colts took quarterback Anthony Richardson with the 5th pick. But before that first name was called, breaking news came down that Lamar Jackson agreed to a 5-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens worth a total of $260 million, $185 million in guaranteed money. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second down on this Friday. Welcome in. Welcome back if you've been hanging out. Post round 1 of the NFL draft, Peter Skoronski, the selection at 11th overall, and 2 more rounds to go tonight. It was a lot of fun over at St. Thomas Sports Park. It was good to be back with everybody in the building and go through the draft process once again. Skoronski, the selection, the offensive line improved, and a piece that fundamentally fits with what it is that the Tennessee Titans want and want to continue to be moving forward as a football team. So the options available tonight are interesting, especially given the quarterback names that are still out there. Former Volunteer Hendon Hooker, with Darnell Wright being the only former Vols player taken in the first round last night. He goes top 10 to Chicago. Hendon Hooker still on the board, and then there is the Kentucky quarterback Will Levis. Now, I think that I may have jinxed it. Bud.
Well, thank you for doing so.
Why? What was the level of panic? Because I saw what was in my Twitter mentions after Stroud goes 2, Anderson goes 3 to the Texans. They trade back up with Arizona, and Richardson goes 4. So immediately, many people's perfect, no matter what your quarterback situation was, many people's perfect quarterback scenarios or perfect Titans draft scenarios were done within the first 4 picks. And that's when the panic started that I could see. You were watching the draft at home with friends?
Yes.
What was the atmosphere like in your living room as you thought very much so that the Tennessee Titans could take Will Levis at 11?
The fear in our hearts during picks, I guess, what was it, after the Colts selected Anthony Richardson? 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Yeah. Excruciating. And I think a lot of Titans fans could say the same. Now, obviously, you're not totally out of the woods yet.
Nope.
And if you're like me and you've been on here for months saying that absolutely not, you cannot take Will Levis as your future franchise quarterback, you're not out of the woods because he is on the board and the Titans pick at 41 later this afternoon. But fear, that is the answer to your question.
I wanted it so badly.
I know you did.
I wanted it so badly. Do we have the audio of me trying to manifest Will Levis to the Titans into existence?
Yes, we do. My worst case scenario is drafting Will Levis at the cost of draft capital that could go towards pass catchers. Basically trading up to 3 with Levis in mind. That's it for me.
God. That would be it wouldn't be for us. You and I would come in here tomorrow and we would have the time of our lives. That's
Speak
not
for yourself.
Not because we're preying on any evil. I just think that'd be funny as hell. Like people would absolutely, there would be a crisis, and that
I don't take pleasure out of people's pain the way you do.
I don't. It just tends to.
You don't. Just the time of your life is what you just said. You want the Titans to take Will Levis so bad because of the pain that it would cause your audience. So do not look at me and say, "No, I don't take." Yes, you do. You absolutely do.
I don't want bad things to happen to them, but I also want good things to happen for the show. And the best possible thing, the worst possible thing for them to do tonight is to take like Skoronski, the tackle that may be a guard. Like I don't want to walk in here and do that tomorrow. I don't want to do that show tomorrow, even as that might be the best possible thing for them. That kills me. That kills you. That kills us. Well.
What do you have to say for yourself?
I'm pissed. I wanted disaster. I was praying on it so bad. We were sitting in the media room in the facility last night. It was me and Rexroad. And Rexroad, I don't know if he's just gone full clickbait journalism or what. I think it's because he's got a talk show now. Rex and I were looking at each other across the room being like, we need Will Levis. We need Will Levis. Meanwhile, Kaharski's yelling at us in the corner. No, he's terrible. He's inaccurate. He's a terrible decision maker. And we're just praying for ourselves and for the sake of content. Give me the quarterback that nobody wants.
Don't let Buck or anyone else tell you that Buck Rising is a man of the people. That is the proof right there.
When have I ever in my life claimed, other than dripping with sarcasm, to be a man of the people? No, I'm selfish. I want what's good for us, and really I want what's good for me. And what's good for me is this show being a bleep show today instead of, guard talk. But that's okay. They're a better football team for it, and I like covering good football.
There is a great irony to how, I won't say uninterested, I and other Titans fans were going into the first round last year, but how relaxed a lot of Titans fans were going into the first round last year, right? Because you didn't have that sort of high-stakes moment brewing of, oh, God, are they going to take a quarterback that I don't want?
No, I don't think. I think you're misremembering how tense it was around the A.J. stuff. Now, you had no idea that he was going to get traded.
Nobody anticipated him getting traded on draft night. What were we talking about with the Titans in the first round last year? Like, remind me who they were – like what position we were most talking about, because I don't even remember, because the A.J. Brown thing just wiped everything clean, and you obviously have to take a receiver in that moment.
I think we were talking about offensive line again,
right,
honestly, because, they weren't great.
So, yes, was there anticipation and was there this nervous energy about, is the A.J. deal going to get done? Sure, but going into the first round, there wasn't this overwhelming sense of fear that something crazy would happen. They'll probably just take an offensive lineman. I hope we sign AJ,
Yeah.
And then going into last night, there was just this overwhelming nervousness among the Titans fan base that they are going to do something like take Will Levis, and then they do end up doing the thing of just taking an offensive lineman.
Are they not a little panicky? Like, just generally? This is the only fan base that I've ever
the fan base
worked for. You know what I'm saying? Like the Titans, I feel like Titans fan a little panicky. Just by nature. It's kind of like a little bit of carryover, battered Vols syndrome. We've got a little battered Titan syndrome carried over where, callers earlier bring up the fact that this franchise has never developed a quarterback, and it completely ignores that this franchise has turned over all kinds of front office people and coaches in the process, and all the Jake Locker harm that was done to you, or all the Ryan Fitzpatrick years that you had to live through. Like, it's got nothing to do with Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon, and yet still people carry that, a little bit of,
No, I think it was about Levis. Like, I don't think the fear about taking Will Levis was about, can the Titans develop him? I think it was about Levis.
Well, it's about Levis because of how everything else played out. It's not. It's a compounded situation, right? Not only are you a little on edge if you're a Titans fan because you think you might be in the quarterback thing, you're curious about how much your team might give up to get the quarterback. And again, I'll tell you what I told you to start the show. They had a very, very compelling offer. Basically, about 30 minutes before the draft, I was told they had the best offer on the table for Arizona. And then all of a sudden, let me look at my look at my read receipts.
To me, just means that the Texans didn't have an offer or a serious offer on the table yet.
And then at 6:34 p.m., I got a text saying Stroud at 2 for sure. And then at 6:34 p.m., Texans trying to trade up 2-3 for Will Anderson. And I'm misunderstood that. I thought they were trying to trade back potentially, take Will Anderson at 3 and get additional picks for somebody who wanted Stroud at 2. So I asked, Texans trying to go to 2 and 3 or someone's going up to 2? And what I got back at 6:54, not very long before it happened, Texans trying to go 2 and 3, and they did.
You didn't put it out there.
I did. It was only one person. I don't like doing stuff unless I feel good about it, which is why I'm still pissed about the Downing thing, because I was confident as hell
that he was coming back.
I was so sure.
Yeah.
But these things very, very quickly change. And it's a scenario that I was glad I was prepared for because it did affect the way that I was able to like kind of, scramble around and talk to people and try and get other things and also prepare myself for the idea, oh my God, they could get banged here really, really quickly. And Indianapolis could still end up with Richardson, which is ultimately what ended up happening.
Well, a lot of Titans fans have defaulted to Michael in the YouTube chat says Titans were never taking a quarterback in the first round. Why are we still talking about this?
That's not true.
Yeah, ESPN called Diana Rossini, who was in Indianapolis, ready for the Colts to take Anthony Richardson or whoever, and said, no, you need to get down to Nashville. The Titans are taking a lineman.
Well.
Right? Is that what happened? That was the conversation?
That was not the conversation.
Change of plans. Titans are taking Skoronski. Get down there now.
The only person I feel worse for than us today because we didn't get Disaster Levis radio is Diana because she flew down here to cover a press conference for a guard.
That's what I'm saying. Like
they were trying to get
too
quarterback.
much smoke around that. Yeah.
They were trying to get the quarterback. They got. And they still ended up in a great situation. But that doesn't mean that they didn't get played a little bit by Arizona and Houston, who were doing business the whole time.
See, I kind of disagree with that premise, though.
Well, let's save it, because that's my whole noon hour, bud. I can't do the whole 3 hours right now with you. 615-737-1045. We can expand on that a little later. Let's go to Alvin in Nashville up next. Hey, Alvin.
How y'all doing?
Good.
Hey, I got a question. I just want to know, do you think we're done at offensive line? And the reason I ask is because I really like Osiris Torrance coming out of Florida. I think he's going to be like a better guard than the guy up in Indianapolis.
Then Quentin Nelson?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. The league doesn't, because Quentin Nelson was a top 5 pick and Osiris Torrance is still on the board. So
you already got your guard.
Yeah, no, well, but that doesn't mean they're done. His question was, are they done on the offensive line?
I bet they take another lineman.
They're not going to take
Osiris.
A guard? No, they're not going to take Osiris Torrance.
Yeah.
Not at this point. And so, Alvin, I don't know what he's basing that projection off of, that Osiris Torrance. Osiris Torrance is a good player by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not Quentin Nelson. Quentin Nelson was Quentin Nelson was a top 5 pick, an interior offensive lineman. Like, there was no discussion around, that guy was Quentin Nelson a left tackle at Notre Dame before they moved him inside? Because I know they did that with Martin.
I can't remember, but he was definitely not drafted as a tackle.
There was no discussion around Quentin Nelson as a tackle whatsoever. And Indianapolis took him at 5, which they were roasted for. And honestly, they're still getting hit over the head with, because they paid a guard $20 million and they had one of the worst offensive lines in football last year. But he's a good player. Good player by any measurement. Let's talk about the good player that the Titans drafted with Coach Dave McGinnis on the broadcast last night of the first round with Titans Radio with Mike Keith, Ramon Foster, Rhett Bryan, and Amy Wells. Titans Radio back on the airwaves tonight from this studio, as a matter of fact, covering rounds 2 and 3 of the NFL draft. So Coach Mack will break down Skoronski and talk about the Titans' next moves with us coming up next. Friday music, 11:20 on a Friday. That means Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio is here with us, and it's always good to be able to do this with Mac. The day after the first round of the NFL draft, it's presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. Like that extra set of pads, they've been protecting Tennesseans for 75 years. Farm Bureau Health Plans has you covered, just like Titans Radio has you covered again tonight, starting at 6 p.m. from this very studio. Mac, how much fun did you have last night?
Hey, Buck, you missed a good party at 6th and Peabody. I mean, that was a gathering. It was really a lot of fun. The Titans did a great job of putting it on. Josh Corey, and his whole group, Jenny Deloach, they did a fabulous job of putting it on. It was really, really a good evening. So it was fun. Plus, Rhett and I were pretty happy because when you put all the work in that we did and we saw and our board was coming off just like we had it, we thought, what the hell, we might know what we're doing.
I think there's no disputing that at this point, Mac. Your and Rhett's resume at the way that you guys have gone about this as a part of the broadcast crew, and I know with your experience, having done this for so many years in the pros, not a lot of people have the kind of insight and analysis available to them from their local teams broadcast like Titans Radio does for the audience. So I know myself and everybody else who wants to be more informed about these players greatly appreciates that coverage. What with Skoronski, though, Mac, I mean, he is such a fundamentally sound player, and depending on how you have these guys stacked, you could make the argument that he's the best offensive tackle or best offensive lineman that was available in this year's draft class. What did you like specifically about the pick?
Well, I mean, first of all, he's a real technically sound player, but he's also an athlete. He's got strength, and what's important is he's always in balance. If you watch tape long enough, and I was talking to Ramon and Hoppy both about this, if you know what you're watching when you're watching offensive linemen, you can tell the physical part a whole lot. You can break all of those elements down. But if you know what you're looking at, you can really tell if they're playing intelligently too, with what's going on and who they're up against. Also, the different types of things they're asked to do. I mean, I've watched this guy be a straight ahead guy. I've watched this guy be a second level go down guy. I've watched him one-on-one on the edge. I've watched him be a pin and pull guy. I mean, this guy's there was not a board across the league that he wasn't in the first round, not one. So that's what you have. And the question came in, because of an inch and a half of arm length, because people get, hung up on that stuff. And, I was asked earlier, on another show that I was on out of market here, what about that? What about Skoronski? I said, look, if you got a chance to get him, get a good football player, then figure out what you're going to do with him. But getting a good football player is important. Plus, I mean, look, this is a 10 or 12-year player. And if he stays healthy, I mean, you've got something to build on, regardless of where you put him. Bruce Matthews played every position on the offensive line in a Hall of Fame career, right? So if you're a good player, you're a good player. And I was the thing about it was, and again, we could get into talking about, were you trading up, were you this and that. See, when you're trying to trade up, the people that own those picks up at the top, they're up there for a reason. They're a bad team. And so they're really smart if they will stick at some of those, to take who they wanted to begin with anyway. This really points out, especially, look, nobody thought that all these trades – Mike Keith said it was a record for trades in the first round. And so this really points out it's okay every now and then when we're going through this process to say, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
Honestly.
And it really, Buck. I mean, and so we got a great example of that, last night. But the pick, I'm very pleased with it. Plus, this team needed to strengthen their offensive front, and they did that.
Well, that's the thing, Mac, right? Like, regardless of if you were a Titans fan, how you felt about, the idea of trading up or all the potentially different options that were on the table, all the different position groups, like this was at its core, and we know the attrition rate that they had because of health and other things, but the offensive line was one of the weakest units, if not the weakest unit on the football team last year, and they got one of the best players possible to improve this thing right out of the gate that helps prolong Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill, no matter how much longer, or for how much short of a time you have both of those players. This lifts everything that you do.
Yeah, this is the highest this team's picked in 6 years because they've had 6 winning seasons in a row. And so, it's unusual, if you're picking there at 11 that you get a consensus first round pick that you're patient enough to stick and pick. And look, I've been in those situations, before. I've gone through it a lot in my career in draft rooms. That when and usually quarterbacks are the one that kind of flip it, or if somebody goes off the rail. And I mean, look, Arthur Smith got the best back in the draft, the best back in the draft. But I don't think anybody thought that Bijan would go that high, okay, just because of the running back position, correct? But when that happens, that pushes, not to say he wasn't a great pick, I love the player, but that starts pushing people down. So when a guy that you have really focused on, if you're going to stick and pick, is sitting up there on that board, and if you've got your board done, just like we've got ours done right here, vertically and horizontally, and all of a sudden horizontally across that board, I mean, he's got a neon light on top of his head. You just sit there, count down the minutes, hoping nobody else picks it.
Well, and that's the thing. Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Titans Radio coverage begins on The Zone at 6 p.m. of rounds 2 and 3 with the entire crew tonight. Ant Brett Hubbs, who is a good addition to the broadcast with all the insights, information, and background that he has on these players, not just as collegiate athletes, but going back to high school and who they are at their core. It's going to be really, really good and informative. I cannot recommend you guys tuning in enough tonight. But Houston kind of, scatters the Jets a little bit when they trade up back right after they take C.J. Stroud at 2 to get the player who, it felt like we'd almost had too much time to talk about Will Anderson, Mac, that people were starting to overthink it. But ultimately, Houston does not, and it kind of breaks the draft board the way that, like you said, a lot of people thought it might go, just not in the most conventional sense.
Yeah, and you know why they were able to trade up, right? They had another first-round pick.
Right.
And the reason you're able to do that, you're a bad team. I mean, that's the way the draft is set up in the National Football League, and that's the way they set it up a long time ago when they started this league, is to give your teams that don't have the success during the season the chance to pick at the top of the rounds throughout the whole draft so that they can get a very competitive league, and that's exactly what has happened. So, and to me, and they had some draft capital. They had draft capital, and the reason, and I think it was, to move back up, be able to get, and look, you're sitting there at Arizona, and Arizona needs everything. Arizona needed everything but a quarterback because they got a ton of money put into that quarterback they've got there now. So they could afford to be able to, to say, okay, if you're going to give us all of this, then we'll move back a little bit.
I don't want to ask you what surprised you, if anything, because of how uncertain the draft is. I know that having done this enough, Mac, you have to be prepared for any scenario, and that surprise is not the correct word. But the reports now coming out about Will Levis and additional concerns around medicals, specifically the toe. He falls out of the first round last night. Was that something that you thought was a possibility that he might not go first round?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because when you've got questions, and again, the circles I talk in is that it's not, I don't listen, and anyway, what I'm saying is there was enough concern, and starting with the clearly the drop off in production that he had from one year to the next, which can be explained by a lot of things. But you just look, if you spend enough time on the film and you spend enough time with the person, which all these teams do because their mortgages depend on it, I mean, the film will tell you the truth, okay? And then you figure everything else out. So it didn't surprise of the four quarterbacks that people talked about, and let's leave Hendon out of it right now because Hendon's recovering from an ACL. Of the four quarterbacks, if you would have asked me specifically, 48 hours ago, which one do you think might possibly fall, I mean, I would say Will Levis.
Coach Dave McGinnis here with us on 104.5 The Zone, talking about last night's first round. As we look now ahead tonight, Mac, and with actually let's keep it with the division here for a second, because the two quarterbacks now being added to Trevor Lawrence and Ryan Tannehill here in the AFC South, with C.J. Stroud to Houston and Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. The fit of those two players in the spots that they landed, what did you make of it?
Well, I mean, both of them have got work to do to be an immediate starter in the league, right? That was the question. To me, the only guy that you could count on of those four quarterbacks slotting and saying, this is going to be my dude in the huddle from day one, was Bryce Young.
Yeah.
The other two are going to take development. So we'll see. And how far along they come, I think that just depends. But that's the shots you take, when you – how many times have we said it, Buck? You know this, and so do our listeners. They're sophisticated. There's two drafts. We just saw it. There's a quarterback draft, and there's everybody else. So to me, in my mind, which I'm not always right, and I'm willing to say I don't know quite a bit in my whole career, is that Bryce Young is the only one of these dudes that you can kind of count on coming out of training camp. This is going to be my dude under center, okay, from the jump. The other two are going to take some development.
So now with the Titans' next couple of picks ahead in rounds 2 and 3 as we sit here today, and the quarterback draft's still a part of things, Mac. I'd be curious to see how it kind of develops once we get over to the facility tonight and once you guys start your broadcast.
Yeah.
But with the Titans' needs and the players that are available, how exciting is the prospect of this many fun skill position players still being on the board to improve the football team?
Good question. Let's just look at the board here. The first guy I've got that's still left in my first pod, let's go to the tight end, is Michael Mayer, okay?
Yeah.
But of the first and the second pod, we had four guys in there. There was only one tight end taken, Dalton Kincaid from Utah. You got Michael Mayer, Darnell Washington, and Luke Musgrave, Luke Schoonmaker, Sam Laporta, Tucker Kraft. You got some tight ends sitting there, all right? You look at the wide receivers. The first four wide receivers on our board went just like that. Bang, bang, bang. So now into pod 2, which is where we are now, you got Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, Josh Downs, Tyler Scott. So you've got some guys in there. We've got offensive line, but still with the offensive linemen, if you're sitting there looking, I mean, there's tackles. There's Matthew Bergeron. There's Dawan Jones. To the interior of the offensive line, I mean, there's a bunch of those guys left. Edge rushers. There's edge rushers. B.J. Ojulari is still sitting out there from LSU, who was in our first pod. That's the last one of the edge rushers that was there. But then you start looking at pod 2, 1 out of the 5 that we had in there was taken, and that was the Uzoma kid from Kansas State.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're into the second and the third rounds, let's go to cornerbacks. Joey Porter Jr. was in our first round. Cam Smith was in our first pod. Those were the only two corners that were not taken. But then you go down to pod 2, you got Keely Ringo, DJ Turner, Clark Phillips III. There's some corners there. The linebackers, we had Jack Campbell at the top of the second pod. He bled into the first pod, but you got Trenton Simpson and Drew Sanders, who we had in the first pod, and then no safeties were taken. So Brian Branch is the premier guy that's sitting on the board right now. They're at safety. So there's players in this draft now, the second and the third day, and so you got to decide where. At the Titans, I think, done a pretty good job of identifying their deficiencies, and so they're going to have some choices, but there's some choices that are going to be made before them. And again, bear in mind that they've got 5 picks left, and that's not a lot of draft capital. So if they want to move somewhere up, they'd have to get pretty creative and sacrifice some things. If somebody wants to come up, then they've got a chance to move down a little bit. But the way that this draft board fell for us, you've got most of your first pod guys gone, and so you're right into that second pod, which is where you should be on the second day.
He's Coach Dave McGinnis. He's on the air with the rest of the Titans radio crew tonight at 6 p.m. with the addition of Brent Hubbs of On3's VolQuest.com. It's going to be great, insightful, informative, and always entertaining with the Titans radio crew. Matt, great work last night. Always enjoy listening and looking forward to you guys keeping us updated while I'm at the facility tonight.
Thanks, Buck. Always enjoy talking ball with you, man. Let's draft again tonight. See you.
That's the main man, Coach Mack, with us on 104.5 The Zone. So right now, Tennessee at 41. Pittsburgh's at the top of the draft with what is essentially a first-round pick because it's still the 32nd pick. Miami didn't select last night. Houston, Arizona, Indy, Los Angeles, the Rams specifically. Seattle, Vegas, Carolina, New Orleans all pick before Tennessee in round 2.
Sorry, when does Houston pick?
Houston is 33rd overall.
And that was included in a trade package.
Oh, yes. You know what? I'm looking at my I'm looking at my sheet from last night. My printout that was the additional the original thing I need to pull up the new draft order.
So Arizona has the 33rd pick.
No, that's a good correction by you.
So it's Pittsburgh, Arizona, Detroit. Those are the first 3 picks because Detroit also dealt with Arizona last night.
That's right.
So it goes Pittsburgh, Arizona, Detroit, Indianapolis. First 4 picks tonight.
Okay.
As it stands.
Good save.
And Rams at 36, who could take a quarterback?
Yeah, what's the deal there? Because there was, do you remember some initial rumblings around moving Stafford earlier in the offseason? Now, obviously, Matt Stafford's year was kind of nightmarish and injuries, and they ended up shutting him down because they were not going to make the playoffs, certainly, and they were not playing meaningful football by the end, so it was just putting him out there for the sake of injury risk, him and Aaron Donald. How old is Stafford right now? Is he 35? I think he's older than Tannehill, right?
I think he's definitely older than Tannehill. He came into the league before Tannehill. He is
much before.
He's 35. No, not much before. Stafford's last year at Georgia, I want to say, was 09.
Yeah, because Tannehill will be 35 this season.
Yeah, fair enough. So Stafford was drafted either in 09 or 10. He was the number 1 pick of the draft. But it was 09. He was drafted in 09. I think Tannehill was a couple years later. Stafford has 3 years left on his deal. They have a potential out in 2026. So he's under contract through 2026, but the Rams have an out after the 2025 season.
So now really it's only Indianapolis ahead of you. Well, I mean, I'm looking at this and just considering all the options on the table. I want to know what Pittsburgh's going to do. I'm very curious about Pittsburgh sitting there at the top of that with that 32nd pick.
They what did they do last night? They traded up to 14. They took Broderick Jones, so they need corner help. Joey Porter Jr. You know what?
Yeah,
I'm gonna sit here and say Joey Porter Jr. is the 32nd pick. Legacy fills a need at corner, and I don't know if there's a receiver that you just absolutely have to have there at 32. Steelers do need receiver help, but I bet you that's Joey Porter Jr.
I am so curious to see I couldn't believe the Buccaneers passed on a quarterback last night. Like this Levis
and the Vikings.
And the Vikings. Like this Levis thing is got to be pretty damning. And, Hendon Hooker, his all the reporting around it, his doctor sending out a letter to all 32 teams, making sure that they were aware that his week 1 availability was more than likely at this point, if not the trajectory that they're on. And I know that's a big deal, and you're trying to get as much good PR out there as humanly possible because there's a huge difference financially between being a first-round pick and a second-round pick, not just for the teams, but for the players, obviously. So where Levis and Hooker ultimately end up falling, I think Detroit could do it behind Goff. I think L.A., as you mentioned, could do it behind the Rams. Seattle didn't. Seattle went Weatherspoon.
Yeah, Seattle could do it at 37. Vegas could do it at 38.
Yeah.
Jimmy G's the present, not the future.
This is why I continue to feel like Ryan Tannehill is going to be here beyond 2023. I really, really do. And I think it's very much their like when we talked about the choose your own adventure that their offseason is basically on, the path has been more chosen for them now with Houston making the move that they did up at 2 and then at 3. And now how the quarterback situation is going to fall. I mean, if Levis gets to them at 41, you don't take him, right?
I mean, it's
If
going to be funny.
everybody who you've talked about is willing to let it, like, even if you're just kind of like, all right, what does everybody else know?
Are we going to play this game again tonight where Titans fans collectively hold their breath? Like, all right, here we go again. He's still on the board.
I don't want him at 41.
No, I feel like you got to take a receiver there, right?
If there is no way that Michael Mayer is there, but if Michael Mayer is there, my God.
Yeah, I'd be good with that.
I know there's different. I think people assign different implications now to when people talk about the Gronk Hernandez offense that the Patriots were running in the mid 2000s with those two as just dominant tight ends instead of having one true blue like alpha dog wide receiver that was dominating that way. They were killing people with those two tight end sets, and with the prevalence of that in the league and specifically within this offense and everything that Michael Mayer does. Oh my God, chef's kiss. I joke about the Levis thing for the purposes of, chaos and just general. I think it would be fun for a minute until you saw him play football and until he continues to tank this way because, oh my God, I don't think anybody's having a worse draft experience than Will. I don't wish it on anybody, but I don't think you want to be the team that pulls the stopgap out on him.
Sure, he's ready to get drafted so he can just take a shower.
So he can leave the green room. I love that you're trying to implement this rule. Let's talk about which pick made us laugh the most coming up next, because there was a couple of funny instances. Our group text was popping off because Lucas and I now have to split the one-chip challenge. Your phone calls as well. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. Titans on the clock tonight at 41. Second and third rounds ahead. Peter Skoronski, last night's first-round pick by Tennessee at the 11 spot. But Lucas put this in our show prep grid for today. Which pick from last night's first round made you laugh the most? Now, I was not enjoying the laughter that was around me because the laughter that was around me, well, there was some laughter in the room with the Titans media, but our group text, our show group text with Bert, who has just decided to abandon ship in one of the most important weeks of the year. Not only does he get his quarterback under contract, and not only does he get his draft crush on, or my draft crush on his favorite team, but he's just absent. He's just absent today. And I don't know how we're going to do this in ways that are good content, Lucas. I don't know where he is right now. I don't know how to find him. I don't know how to contact him. I can't even summon him from the shadows at this point. Unless you're telling me that I can.
I think he's lurking.
Is there something lurking? I feel a presence, an aura even. A red flash that just blinded me running by my screen or perhaps even on my phone screener. Is Bert there? Is he actually there? Is he not there? Am I just doing a bit?
No, he's there. He's not talking.
Bert, talk.
Why can you not hear me? Hello?
That was so stupid. I'm sitting here talking to Lucas in Lucas's ear. I'm like, think about how funny it'd be if we called Bert back from the shadows and he's just babbling somewhere in the background while you fade him up. And of course, you do the exact worst thing. You just sit there.
Didn't say anything.
Just sit there.
I've been talking this entire time.
I didn't hear you.
Okay, good.
Well, look, before we get into this,
where are
semantics, where am I? That's from an undisclosed location, surrounded by beautiful women, Buck.
You don't get to be on assignment, and does Cheyenne know that you're surrounded by beautiful women on assignment?
Just keep this between us, okay? You don't need to be a tattletale. You don't need to be pocket watching me. You don't need to know where I'm at. Just know I'm having a good time, and look, I'm not one to start a victory lap, but ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. You know what I'm saying? Oh, my God. Okay, first, when I'm taking this victory lap, let me talk about Emmanuel Forbes. Not only was he a first-round pick, he was taken at the 16th pick.
Yeah.
What a beautiful pick. And even more beautiful than that, I don't have to eat half of that disastrous chip. We get to watch Buck roll over as he downs milk down his gullet and buries himself.
No. Not just Buck. Lucas is doing this too.
What was the chip thing?
If Emmanuel Forbes got drafted in the first round, you and I had to split the one chip
I don't remember
challenge.
that.
Yes, Bert.
I know I lost the tight end bet, and I have to draw a mustache on my face, but I don't recall the chip bet actually agreeing to it.
I'm so glad you brought up the tight end pick for Dallas. Like, how much more right can I get? Does anybody want some lottery numbers? Does anybody need their first child named? Anybody want to guess when they're going to have a baby? Because I'm magic. I'm on fire, baby.
I'm very happy for you. I don't know where you are. I don't necessarily want you back, which is why I'm going to send you to the shadows now.
Well, no, you're not. You're not.
Whoa.
Because we have to do this first. Lucas, hit it. He's back. He's back, baby. Oh, it's a beautiful weekend. Let the sun shine in. That's right. Lamar Jackson, back in Baltimore. OBJ, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers. I'm going to be there. I might move into M&T Bank. There's not a damn thing you could say that could ruin my day. The Ravens are back, baby. Lamar's back, baby. I'm back, baby. Woo! Let the sun shine in. I love it. I love it.
Get the hell out of here.
Whoa! I'm in New Jersey.
Why the hell is he in Jersey?
I feel like is he like trying not to wake someone up? I feel like
he was whispering.
Yeah, he was speaking in almost a hushed tone. He was trying to he was like cutting a promo almost.
Well, yeah, because Cheyenne's probably with him. He probably said something about being surrounded by beautiful women, and then his girlfriend walked upstairs and yelled at him.
I don't think he's with Cheyenne.
Oh, good.
He's with like his buddies, and like one of them is gonna propose. It's like a proposal setup for one of his buddies, but they're also doing it on draft week. I don't know what the situation is. But
Dylan Elam in the Zone TV chat says, Bert, that onion went to Bert's brain. No, Lamar Jackson's 5-year, $260 million contract plus Zay Flowers plus Odell Beckham Jr. plus Rashad Bateman is what's got Bert feeling himself today. Lucas also made me laugh with how strongly he was a proponent of the Cowboys taking a tight end. In fact, in ways that you often do to me. Can I hear you being loud wrong? That would make me very happy today.
Then the Panthers, other than the Panthers and I'm looking at, and the Colts, like teams that we'll put the quarterback draft aside. Are the Cowboys the one team that everybody pretty much knows what position they're taking at 26?
What is that?
Tight end, right?
Are they? Where's Dalton Schultz?
Not a Dallas Cowboy.
He is in Houston.
That's right. Yeah, I guess tight end makes sense. Sure. But again, honestly, Lucas, I swear to God, I haven't thought about who the Cowboys are taking at 26. What do I care who the Cowboys are taking at 26? My job is done by 26. My job's done by 12.
Jerry Jones might be my daddy, y'all. I was talking to my daddy the other day. He said a lot of different players are in play there. They could go tight end. They could go not tight end.
They're going to take a tight end.
Who'd they take?
Mozzie Smith, defensive lineman, Michigan. And I was stunned with Michael Mayer on the board. They even got Chris Mortensen. I was watching the ESPN coverage, and Mort is up there saying, hey, I'm not telling you who the Cowboys are going to pick, but there's one guy who's still on the board that's getting all these Jason Witten comps.
Well, especially because Dalton Kincaid went the pick before, and Buffalo traded up to get him.
Yes.
That was the thing that I thought might make you loud right instead of very, very loud wrong today.
And I like that pick from Buffalo, by the way, pairing Dalton Kincaid with Dawson Knox. But, yeah, I was stunned that the Cowboys did not take a tight. I mean, they'll be able to address it. When do the Cowboys pick? Today, Dallas does not have a pick for quite a while. 58, is that right?
I see the Cowboys first on the board at 58.
Yeah. So I guess somebody will be there at 58. Maybe Musgrave falls all the way to 58.
It's possible. People, the durability thing is a real thing with Musgrave.
But
People are legitimately concerned.
I'll be held accountable. I'll draw a mustache on my face.
Okay, so that's your punishment. I thought we were going to lose different bets and that we both had to do the one chip challenge. I didn't realize we had different bets.
The tight end bet, because y'all took the field for the Cowboys pick, and it was that if the Cowboys took a tight end, you and Bert had to shave your face down to a mustache.
Okay.
For a show. And then if I lost the bet, I had to draw a mustache on my face because I cannot grow a mustache.
And the reason that I'm doing the one chip challenge on air next week when Bert is back is because he bet me that Emmanuel Forbes would be a first round pick, and I was like, "Are you sure?" And then he went 16.
So we'll figure out a day to do that.
Swell, love that for us. You know what pick made me laugh the most? The Titans. The Titans, because I said I didn't want it. I said I wanted nothing to do it. I said the worst thing possible for the radio show is for them to take that tackle that's probably not a tackle. He's probably a guard. And then what do? 3 hours of tackle talk radio today. Let's talk about whether you think the Titans got played yesterday in the first round, because that was not the plan necessarily. It's a plan that they were fine with. But Skoronski was not the thing that they set out in the first round to do. So we'll talk about that, the details of it, and whether you think they got played, coming up next.
"40 years ago, we opened our doors with one mission in mind:
We'll be right back with the top 10 songs of 1983.
to sell quality American-made vehicles at a fair price.
You have arrived.
And we've loved every minute of the ride. Celebrating 40 years of Two Rivers Ford.
It is 12:02. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The first round of the NFL Draft is in the books with the 11th pick. The Tennessee Titans selected Northwestern offensive lineman Peter Skoronski. Mike Vrabel spoke with Titans media about the selection on Thursday night.
We're getting a fantastic player, a physical player, a violent player. He's got versatility, and those are things that we covet. And with the durability, I know when he grabs people, most of the time they stop moving. So that's really a good thing for an offensive lineman.
Big night for the AFC South, especially in the top 5. The Houston Texans taking quarterback C.J. Stroud at 2 and then trading back up to 3 to take Alabama edge rusher Will Anderson. Of course, the Colts drafting quarterback Anthony Richardson with the 5th pick. Rounds 2 and 3 of the draft will take place tonight. The Pittsburgh Steelers hold the first pick of the second round. As of now, the Titans have picks 41 and 72 today. Titans radio coverage starts at 6 p.m. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Man, is it already the noon hour? What happened? Must be the day after the first round. Welcome in. Show's moving fast. We got one more to go to wrap up this week before I basically pack up and head back over to St. Thomas Sports Park for the rest of the evening. So rounds 2 and 3 are tonight, kids. Titans get their guard, potentially tackle potentially guard. Peter Skoronski, either way, is the selection at 11. 41 ahead tonight, and the third round after that, we'll see what this team has yet to do. But what happened last night I thought was fascinating. And I tweeted at some point, I think it was, maybe about 5:30, maybe a little before. Like there were still lies flying around all over the internet, people leaking things to other people that are putting them out right before the draft. As Mike Keith said on the Titans radio broadcast last night, a record for first-round trades. Lucas, I did that whole segment the other day about how rarely teams trade up into the top 10, trade around in the top 10 even.
On draft day.
On draft day specifically. Like once the round has begun, how infrequently teams trade up in the top 10. You had you had Philadelphia do it, you had Arizona do it, and you had Houston do it. And that was just in the top 10. So the NFL draft is...
Philadelphia was already in the top 10, but yeah, I see what you're saying. They just traded up the one spot.
Yeah. Still, it is a trade up within the top 10.
Yeah.
So what I was fascinated by was how quickly it felt like all the best laid plans of the Titans organization to try and secure C.J. Stroud were very, very quickly undone. Very, very quickly. That it took basically 3 weeks of ramp up for them to even have a shot at that dude, and that it all was over in about 20 minutes. I mean, not about 20 minutes, in literally 20 minutes at that stage. So I tweeted at about 5:30 before the draft started. I said, I'm going to miss the draft lies. It's so random. It's all over the place, and it gives you stuff to talk about, but how regularly or how frequently it's grounded in reality. Always look back after the fact and be like, damn, just loud wrong all over the place. By the way, Skoronski is going to have his introductory press conference at St. Thomas Sports Park 4:15 today. So I'm sure he will be, I think they typically put him on 3HL after that. So he'll probably be on 3HL too. But keep an eye out, or keep an ear out, I guess. So my question is, do you feel like the Titans got played a little bit? Because they ended up with a great player. I was joking yesterday when I said worst case scenario for us as a show is Skoronski today because it's just the least compelling version of sports talk radio. That isn't the truth. Even if it's the best possible solution for them on the board. And it was, by the way. Love the pick, even if I thought it could be more interesting. But the purpose is not to be interesting. The purpose is to improve the football team fundamentally, and they did that. But did they get played in the process and still end up with a great solution for their worst position group as a team? They lost out on the quarterbacks last night, and they tried to get involved. You had Bryce Young obviously going 1. Very quickly, Stroud is announced as going to be the 2nd overall pick. So any smokescreen that Houston spent very many months trying to cultivate and create, and did so pretty effectively, that Stroud was not going to be the pick at 2, was immediately wiped off the board. I told you that I got a text about an hour before that pick went down that they were going to pick 2 and 3, that they were desperately, about 5:30, I got a text saying that the Texans wanted to get up to 3 to get Will Anderson, and then so they did. And Richardson goes 4, so even if you liked Anthony Richardson, you're looking around and be like, damn, the AFC South is now the Titans are the only team in the AFC South without a young quarterback on a cheap contract, and they lost out because they got outmaneuvered. Now again, I'll read you the timestamp on this so I can be specific, because I was told that they had the best offer on the table for 3 at 5:14 p.m. The text I got, quote, I'm very confident right now that they have the best offer in for 3. Doesn't mean it will end up the best offer, but right now it is. That was 5:14, about 2 hours before the first round actually began. And then, as I mentioned, I got a text at 6:34, Stroud from a league source, Stroud at 2 for sure. Texans trying to trade up to 3 for Will Anderson, also at 6:34, and then the pick went down about an hour later. The pick and the trade went down about an hour later. So did Arizona and Houston get together and kind of bang Tennessee on this? Because that was the vibes that Houston was sending out privately and publicly. There's a lot of people that you talked to around the league yesterday that felt like Tennessee, even as they ended up with a great solution, got in their efforts to get the quarterback and be a part of the quarterback draft. It doesn't mean that the Titans are going to end up the worse for it. Like I said, I think they're a better football team today, indisputably. But it just is a moment of kind of looking back around and saying, okay, did they get fooled a little bit? First-time general manager, he's talking about how many people are calling around being nosy. Rand Carthon was asked about this specifically, about QB discussions yesterday, and this was the audio. You don't have it? You do. Okay.
I faked myself out.
Why? Can you not fake yourself out in my ear in ways that nobody else can hear?
That was great.
No, it's not. It's terrible radio. I'm trying to do a thing.
If you guys remember when we spoke, I guess it was Monday, and I told you guys about everybody being nosy. That included me. So, you have to know all the scenarios above you, below you, so we called everybody, whether it was teams above us, teams below us, just exploring to see where we were going to be. And it's funny, Mike and I, we were just talking about it downstairs. How they came off is about how we predicted and where we thought was going to be there for us at 11 to choose from. We did think Peter was going to go a little higher than expected, but we would have loved for him to fall to us, and he did.
So that's Rand Carthon. And listen, let me say this, just because they had a package prepared to go up to 3 to get C.J. Stroud does not mean that they got played. It's an option that they had on the table. It's one that they thought was good enough to pursue. It's an option that didn't pan out because ultimately, as we discussed, they don't have the ammo to move around like that. Houston got back to 3 because Houston had 2 first-round picks and 12 total on the draft. So they got outmaneuvered because they were outgunned.
Yeah, they were outgunned. Outmaneuvered is tough. Outmaneuvered, to me, is like winning a chess match where both sides are even and you outthink somebody. Outgunned is a whole different ballgame.
They were not on even playing fields.
Right.
You are absolutely correct.
Like
they are in a worse position because of the draft capital that previous trades have cost them.
Sure.
They, as an organization, were outmaneuvered by another organization who had more picks because they're a worse organization and a worse football team, but also because of previous decisions that were made that cost them legitimate draft capital, like the 4th-round pick that they don't have because of Julio Jones this year.
Which the Houston Texans would have nothing to do with.
Nothing to do with, but again, I think that it can be outgunned and outmaneuvered at the same time.
Like if you are looking to buy a house and you just fall in love with a house, but you've got your budget and you make your bid, and then somebody in an entirely different tax bracket swoops in and says, no, I want that house, and they outbid you, and you just can't reach that number, or you're at an auction and somebody outbids you, you're not willing to go to that number, or you just can't.
You've just described the entire Nashville real estate market.
Okay, so is that like, oh, you got played, you got outmaneuvered? Like, no, they had more than I had.
Only because
that's how it works.
Only because when I was buying my house, I was showing people pictures of the house that I got outbid on. Before I ended up buying my house, that was terrible. And that was before the real estate market went crazy here in Middle Tennessee. That was like 2019. That was terrible. Never show people pictures of a house that you haven't yet closed on.
The Texans traded the 12th and 33rd. So, that's the second pick in the second round this year. Any other year, it would be the first pick of the second round. The 12th and 33rd picks in this year's draft, and a first and third pick next year to the Cardinals to go up to that third pick to get Anderson. The Titans could not do anything like that.
Right. And it was nuked as soon as Stroud went too.
Yeah.
Like it ceases to matter as soon as Stroud goes too. Let me say that on the front end.
So Houston can feel like they won the night. That's fine.
Houston
they
did feel like they won and are bragging to people around the league that they got the Titans, which is why I am posing the question in this way, because I don't necessarily feel that that's an accurate assessment, but I'm still looking around at this situation and saying, yeah, it was nuked as soon as their smokescreen is alleviated because it's Stroud, and that's over. Your trade was for 3. Your trade was never for 2.
Yeah. I struggle with outgunned, outplayed, outmaneuvered.
Oh my God, we're doing the remodel, refurbish, rebuild.
We're talking about real estate.
Stop it.
But the Texans just had more. Yeah. So at some point you say, okay, well then if they were going to go up and get that third pick, we didn't have a chance to begin with.
We knew it was always going to be hard. We knew that they were trying their asses off, which is why people got excited. And then when it didn't happen, the Houston Texans got to look around, puff their chests out, and be like, it was always Stroud.
Do Power 5 college football teams beat FCS teams because they outcoach them? No, because they have more ammo. Yeah. They have better players. Yeah. They just have more than the team that they are playing. It's not a level playing field.
Why are you yelling at me?
You yell at me all the time.
That's just my. I don't yell at you.
Oh, that's just your talking voice? That's also my talking voice. We have a radio show of 3 people whose talking voice is considered yelling by most people.
Yeah, but I think you have a better tone. Although you do tend to get like stronger and louder at the same time.
I get antagonistic with you. I don't know what it is.
I feel like you're not like that with most people, which is funny.
But no.
And also better radio. Love that.
Did the Texans win the night? Yes. But did the Titans get got? I struggle with that because it just wasn't a level playing field in regards to that third pick.
You know who got? Which is why I'm doing this segment. Fans got. Fans got. And this is the problem with the draft. This is why people don't trust any information. This is why you should not trust any information around the draft process, because fans got. They got unrealistic, and ultimately they got a guard. And that's still really, really good. We'll get to your phone calls on this next, 615-737-1045. You'll also hear from Titans head coach Mike Vrabel on what the team's strategy will be heading into tonight's second and third rounds. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Oh, man.
Amount of time talking about Titans and Skoronski, which, okay, whatever. I get it. But also, like, to time up the commercial break again with the Titans picking inside the top 15. It's just, it is, I mean, you know it's coming every year. Never disappoints. My mic's off on YouTube, Lucas.
Not anymore.
Okay, very good.
Did you see this from Antonio Brown?
Antonio Brown?
I just sent it into our Twitter group.
No.
Antonio Brown, and you never know who's verified or not on Twitter, but this Antonio Brown account that has 1.6 million followers has tweeted, 40 minutes ago he tweeted, excited to return to the NFL this year, hashtag Ravens flock, with a picture of him in a Ravens jersey.
What is happening?
I haven't seen a single report.
Oh, my God.
I haven't seen Schefter, Rap Sheet, the Ravens themselves say anything about this, but Antonio Brown just tweeted a picture of himself in a Ravens jersey.
I want that worse than I want air. That they can't. They can't. But what's the connection between Lamar and AB? No, Hollywood Brown is AB's cousin, right?
Is he?
I believe that's the case. You might fact check me on that. And obviously he's a Cardinal, so that doesn't I'm looking at this picture that he's gotten photoshopped of him in this Ravens 84 jersey. Excited to return to the NFL this year, Ravens flock. You think he's just manifesting on the internet?
Yeah, there's been nothing concrete to say Antonio Brown is a Raven. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Please, dear God, I need that. 615-737-1045. Before we let you hear from Mike Vrabel on what the priority will be tonight and moving forward in the NFL draft for the Titans, let's go to the phones. How about Logan and Cookville up next?
Hey, Buck, how's it going?
Hi, buddy.
I enjoy the show. I'm just calling to ask how you feel about Darnell Washington going at 41 to us if Michael Mayer, doesn't fall because he does have that high draft stock. Thank you. I'll hang up and listen.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'd take Darnell Washington.
At 41?
Yeah.
What if Michael Mayer's on the board?
Michael Mayer. Darnell Washington just makes the most sense as a complimentary. I mean, no. Michael Mayer makes the most sense if he's there. Michael Mayer also makes the most sense to sure as hell not be there by 41. I would be shocked, but I'm honestly shocked he didn't go last night. I'm shocked Kincaid went before he did. I think that Washington is such a great complementary piece for what Chig is. If Washington is your inline your inline tight end and Chig is your move tight end, and you're operating with a player that has a lot of potential, but you also know is a road grader and is going to be able to play in all of your two tight end sets, Jeff Swaim, supersize me. Now, they have Trayvon Wesco to hedge their bets against that, and that's not a bad option. But I love the potential of what that would look like. They'd just be running over people left and right. It'd be 1 and 2 wide receiver sets the entire year. Let's go to Rick in Hendersonville up next. Hey, Rick.
Hey, I don't know if you remember, but I pounded the table and said, for God's sakes, do not move up in the draft. Give up all those draft picks. Turn around, pick and stick, and you either take Johnson or Skoronski. And so I, as a fan, am tickled to death. And I'd like to know, who do you think would take Michael Mayer before the 41st pick? Because I've got Michael Mayer going to the Titans.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people would love that. I could see a scenario. Now, I know, does Carolina has who? Tommy Tremble is their tight end?
Yes.
Zach Ertz is old. I think Arizona could totally do that. I think that Detroit, especially since they traded away Hawkinson, I mean, yeah, you could go down the list on this. Indy has Mo Alley Cox. Who's the other tight end there? Oh, the Virginia kid from last year.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm blanking on his name.
Woods.
Jelani Woods. That's right. Yeah, no, I could totally make the argument for 33, 34. I mean, I really make Vegas traded away. Oh, I'm blanking on his name. He's a giant now. The tight end, Darren Waller.
Darren Waller. Yeah,
there's just too many names in my head right now. But yeah, there's many opportunities for the player that I believe to be the best tight end prospect right now, like game-ready tight end prospect.
Yeah, and remember,
right now is Michael Mayer.
Foster Moreau, walking away. Now, he might have been a free agent.
He was a free agent because he discovered his cancer on a free agent visit with the Saints.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was a medical. So Foster Moreau battling Hodgkin lymphoma.
Yeah,
he was a Raider. So Raiders have a massive need at tight end.
Vegas could take the tight end of their choosing. In all likelihood, Michael Mayer. I think he makes a ton of sense. So
they could both be off the board by 41.
I think so.
Washington and Mayer.
I definitely think so. Especially if people are still trafficking, either just by letting the draft board fall, or if somebody thinks it's good enough to go up and get, say, Washington goes before Mayer, and all of a sudden you're looking around and being like, oh, but I want Mayer, and the tight end run is getting ready to start. Let me go get him before somebody else does. Because you see New England is trying to move around. They've got a bunch of fourth-round picks. They're trying to maneuver in the second, according to our buddy Mike Giardi. So we'll see how that plays out. So yes, to answer Rick's question, there's a great many teams who could take both tight ends before the Titans pick at 41. Now, could Tennessee again move up? Potentially, but unlikely with only the 5 picks that they have to play with at this stage. Michael in Nashville is next. Hey, Michael.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
I just wanted to say I don't think that Houston can really say that they got or played anybody, because I don't think anybody truly believed that they weren't going to take C.J. Stroud. I'll hang up and listen.
Oh, sure. I mean, listen, the most obvious thing happened. The thing that we said we could not possibly imagine was them not taking C.J. Stroud at 2.
Kind of. I mean, the way things turned on this was insane because, 4 weeks ago, when we initially saw Peter King hint, hey, maybe they don't, and then Adam Schefter yelling at Dan Orlovsky. Who wins that bet, by the way?
Oh, Orlovsky.
Because Orlovsky's like, there's no way 3 quarterbacks don't go in the top 5. And Schefter's like, oh, I'll bet you 100
No,
to 1.
Schefter, I mean, is there any way we can find that audio? I honestly think, because it's a good point by you, you had 2 of the most credible information people out there saying, I will bet you money. Adam Schefter. Betting money on live national television, saying that, or betting something with 100 to 1 odds, maybe not necessarily financial, but yelling at Dan Orlovsky in essence to say there's not going to be a quarterback taken at 2. That was the only thing that really kind of moved me off of it. Because even yesterday we came in here saying I just can't envision them doing that with Indy at 4 and Tennessee at 11. For what? But the thing that really turned it for me was Schefter. And so Schefter loses that bet to Orlovsky, and Houston gets their quarterback. And now in this circumstance where Tennessee gets a great player in the draft but not involved in the quarterback draft, you can look around and say, Houston may not be on solid ground and pounding their chest and saying, look how much better we did than these teams. Look how much we pulled what do you pull over
the
somebody's
wool
eyes?
over
the
wool? Yeah.
Who's pulling wool over your eyes? What does that mean?
I don't know. That's just the saying. Pulling wool over your eyes.
See, this is why I'm not even mad at myself for not. What did I say last week? Blowing your socks off or something like that?
Yeah, blowing your socks off.
Knock your
blowing
socks
your
off?
doors off. Knocking your doors off.
Something like that. I don't know.
No, but that was 4 weeks ago. You said there's no way they don't take Stroud. But yesterday, like lead up to the draft, when the Texans were about to pick at 2, I found myself thinking like I'll be shocked. I'm now convinced that they're going to take a defensive player.
No, and like I said, I had heard about 30 minutes before that Stroud was for sure 2. And so at that point, I was operating under the assumption that, okay, and then I was trying to figure out, okay, they actually going to do this trade up to 3, and sure enough, they did.
Sure, but we were talking about Tyree Wilson or Will Anderson at 2 suddenly. Like, the smoke got so big on the Texans taking defensive guy at 2. That's why there was so much noise about the Titans being able to go up and get Stroud for 3.
It's okay if you don't have it, but do you have the audio?
I do have Schefter, yeah.
Yeah, let's hear it because this is the thing that was the only reason that I was willing to budge off Stroud at 2.
Listen, we think that Anthony Richardson is a fascinating prospect, but so is this entire prospect. Dan, you mentioned the run on quarterbacks, but let me ask everybody this. What if the run on quarterbacks gets a little bit delayed? What if it's a little bit later to start than people thought? We've been hearing about quarterbacks going 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not going to happen, I don't believe. in this draft? And what would happen if and when we've seen Carolina make the move up right away for a quarterback at 1, but we haven't seen anybody trade up to 2 when Houston's open to listening? We haven't seen anybody trade up to number 3 because you know what? I think Indianapolis thinks there's a real chance right now that they could sit right where they are at 4 and get potentially the second quarterback in this draft. There's a chance we might not see a quarterback go at 2 or even 3, and there might not be a team that trades up because the value in that isn't what we thought it would be. So Indianapolis may be sitting there with its pick of the litter, Anthony Richardson or Will Levis or C.J. Stroud. That could happen. That's a possibility right now.
I'll bet you $10
Stroud might be there
at
at
a
4.
very nice steakhouse that two quarterbacks go in the first 4 picks. There's no question about it. I bet you $10. This is what I'll say.
Hold on, Dan. What kind of odds? What kind of odds you give me on there? Because that's obvious. Everybody's expecting that, right?
I'll give you 10 to 1 odds, Shefty.
Done.
10 to 1. 10 to 1.
10 to 1 on $10.
Here's my thing. Here's my.
These teams right now
seem
willing to wait. They seem willing to wait.
Sure as hell not.
I think Orlovsky worded that wrong. 2.
He said yeah.
When he said 2 quarterbacks in the top 4, I think he meant to say 3.
But I don't think Schefter heard him, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you let Schefter off the hook because Dan didn't get it out quite right. Because Adam Schefter is, all but pounding his chest saying, no, listen to me. They're not doing a quarterback at 2, or it's very unlikely that they're doing a quarterback 2. And then, of course, they did. That about a week before the draft was the only reason that I was willing to entertain the possibility.
So the Texans didn't play the Titans or anyone else because of the way that they traded up to 3. What they did was make everyone think they were going to take a defensive player at 2. And allow the Titans to think there was even an opportunity to trade up to 3.
Because Peter King wasn't the person that really set that momentum. It was Schefter on national television making bets.
Yeah, because Peters was just buried in his weekly Monday notebook or whatever. Like, hey, what if this happens? And Schefter out there screaming about it on national TV.
Is that as loud wrong as Adam's ever been?
Not recently.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's go to Steve in Nashville next. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Lucas, thank you for taking my call.
What's up, Steve?
The face I just made.
Right? I know. I wanted to see you roll your eyes at me, too. My daughter usually gets away with it. Hey, I told y'all we were taking Skoronski. I said, if Paris Johnson's gone, we're taking Skoronski. And we talked about it, and I said, what proof did we have of the Titans wanting to move up? None. 0. Cawthorn met with him. I'll bet you this. I'll bet you they had no intention of moving up. Smokescreen. They had to get him. They're going wide receiver. They're going wide receiver next. Tillman, Mims, or Hyatt.
So you're saying that they had no involvement in the court. They didn't have an option on the table to trade up for C.J. Stroud.
Not a chance.
Well, I can tell you definitively that you're wrong there, but that's okay.
Well, I can live with that.
Okay.
I think Tannehill's gonna get a restructured deal too. He's gonna lower his cap number.
No, that I think is very much on the table. Thank you for the call, Steve. I think it's never been a more real possibility that Ryan Tannehill is a quarterback beyond 2023 for this organization than it is right now.
By the way, talk about getting a receiver or a pass catcher in the second round. The Dirty Bird on Twitch reminds us Austin Hooper is a Raider. So their tight end need isn't as glaring as we were looking at. I forgot, but yeah.
Well, that's not fair. It's not Hooper's fault he played in a terrible offense last year. I shouldn't do that to Austin Hooper because honestly,
he did some nice things.
Once they started playing him on the damn field over Jeff Swaim, he was catching passes for third downs all the time, or for first down conversions all the time. Third down conversions.
AJ asks, Buck, do you have knowledge that they were trying to move to 3?
Yeah, they had a package put together that as of 5:30 or 5:15, according to the timestamps on my text, that was the most compelling package for Arizona at 3. They had a plan in place if Schefter was right and Houston didn't take Stroud, and then as soon as Houston took Stroud, it's done and they move on. It's as simple as that. It's not groundbreaking. Indianapolis has to have a package prepared. Vegas has to have a package prepared. Seattle didn't seem like they had any plans to do anything but the corner that they took at 5th overall, which I thought was interesting. But still, you can't just have one plan in these scenarios. And yeah, all the stuff around the Titans exploring potential trade-up options, if the quarterback situation fell to them, they were doing that. not just with Arizona, with multiple teams. That it's everyone can have. I mean, every team theoretically can have a plan in place. So that's not any kind of groundbreaking analysis to say that they were prepared if a situation was to fall into their lap that way, and it didn't. Daryl in Nashville is up next. Hey, Daryl.
Hey, how you doing?
What's up?
Okay, this salary cap, I am totally confused. I'm dumb. What happened if we have Tannehill, Garrett, and Keith Byers next year? What?
You said Kevin Byard?
Kevin Byers, and we keep Derrick Henry, keep Tannehill. Next year, what's going with the salary cap? Do we got to release all three of them or what? I mean, I'm confused, and I listen to you guys. Just let me know, because I don't say a salary cap. It's so crazy.
Oh, okay. So, are you, Daryl? Just so I'm clear, you mean in 2024, not this coming season?
Right, 2024.
Okay.
We keep Derrick, Tannehill, and Byers this year. What go on next year?
Okay,
2024.
I got you. So you can do that under your current salary cap. Like right now, nothing has to happen. They are currently a cap-compliant football team, even with Byard, Tannehill, and Derrick carrying big cap numbers. In 2024, Ryan Tannehill is no longer under contract. So you no longer have money on the books for Tannehill in 2024 unless you extend him. You don't have money. Derrick Henry's contract expires. Both Derrick and Tannehill's contract expires at the end of this upcoming season, meaning 2023 is the only year right now that those two players have any costs associated with Tennessee. That's why the Titans in 2024 have something like $140 million in cap space, because some of their biggest contracts come off the books, on top of the ones that they've already cleared space for, and some of the dead money, a lot of the dead money, goes away from other mistakes. Let's hear from Titans head coach Mike Vrabel on what the Titans will address, or how the Titans will address things tonight in rounds 2 and 3, and then potentially into Saturday. Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045 is the number. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Last segment of the week for us. That doesn't mean that the party stops. Of course, you got Blaine and Mickey coming up next. You got 3HL on after that. Peter Skoronski's introductory press conference is the new Titans first-round pick, going to take place at 4:15. So I'll be over at St. Thomas Sports Park by then, and then for the rest of the evening, because rounds 2 and 3 will get underway shortly after that. What are the Titans looking for in the rest of the draft? Because we won't talk about this again until I speak to you Sunday night on the primetime show, and of course, radio show on Monday. But what are the Titans looking for now, specifically with a big offensive line need addressed? This was Mike Vrabel speaking with us last night after they picked Skoronski.
Yeah, but we've talked about we've talked to our players already, the ones that we have on the roster, about the ability to play fast and the ability to be and get timed fast. So we're going to find a way to get him to play faster, and then we're going to target some players that have speed, but at his position, this is a fast player, plays fast, isn't unsure of what he's supposed to do when he goes and hits somebody and blocks the guy and keeps him away from the quarterback.
Speed is what they're targeting, and they think they've added a player who plays fast in Skoronski, which, by the way, was one of the biggest criticisms of Dylan Radins, is that he just wasn't executing in a way that was fluid enough, that was fast enough, that was aggressive enough, and violent enough for them prior to the ACL tear.
But today, the speed that most people think of when you say the word speed, right?
Yes.
Pass catching speed.
Unless Rhett Bryan just came in here and asked me, what are you going to do if they pick Levis at 41? I said, well, I'm probably going to come in and work on Saturday. I'm probably going to do a live radio show on Saturday just to see what happens.
No, you won't even be on the air. You'll just be talking into a mic.
I'm just going to come in here and just do
whoever the board
show.
op is on Saturday. Oh, yeah, I'm on the air. No, you can't do that. We got soccer from 12 to the end of the game Saturday at Geodis Park. So you're welcome to come in.
Oh, you're worried that I'll bump you.
I'd be so pissed if we're just in the middle of calling the game in the 37th minute, Nashville playing Atlanta this weekend.
Guys, we're getting word from St. Thomas Sports Park that the Titans have just taken Will Levis with the 41st pick. We go now to Buck Rising in his home, pacing back and forth like a maniac.
Well, that would be tonight, but like Saturday, if I just hear your voice in my ear talking about whatever, like 5th, 6th rounder the Titans drafted, I'd be pretty upset.
Pity. Last call for phone calls, for us anyway. If you want to talk to Blaine and Mickey, they'll get started here in just about 10 minutes. Chase is in Ashland City up next. Hey, Chase.
Hey, guys. I love the show. I live for the draft, and so I was so pumped, and I watched it last night, and I almost threw up when we picked a offensive lineman. I mean, I'm against picking an offensive lineman in the first as a general rule, but, I mean, why didn't we get a receiver, a skill position that could help Tannehill this year? And, we're batting 500 for linemen in the first round. Conley and Lawan were fine, but we got a couple other ones that didn't work out. So
the new GM doesn't make a difference to you in terms of offensive line evaluation?
Correct.
Okay. Well, that would seem counterintuitive. But listen, I get it if you're somebody who's still living with Isaiah Wilson and Caleb Farley not that far removed. What are you laughing about?
I do love the blanket approach of no offensive lineman in the first round. Ever.
Doesn't matter. I would say to you, Chase, you're entitled to your opinion. I think Ryan Tannehill's far bigger need is for protection as opposed to dudes that he needs both. But based on the last couple of years, the guy just needs to make it through a game. Kelly in Lebanon next. Hey, Kelly.
Real quick, I'm ecstatic with how it worked out last night. I'm happy we didn't give up what Houston had to give up to move back up to 3. Got my fingers crossed. I think the best thing we could do for Tannehill would be either of the tight ends, Meyer or Washington. I think Washington would be like getting another tackle.
Yep.
And I'll say the only Levis I'd like to see is his hot little sister, Kelly.
Oh God. Thanks, Kelly. Kelly wants to see Kelly.
Kelly wants to see Kelly. I don't know what to do. Just hit the polls.
All right, then. I reckon I'll talk about a poll update. This is Carl Childers. There's a young feller I think he's got the final numbers. Here's the producer of the Buck Rising show. A feller named Lucas Panzeker. Got any mustard and biscuits?
Did we just do an early episode of Oh No? Did we skip ahead to Tuesday at 10:45? Did Kelly just make us say Oh No? Kelly on Kelly Crime? Yeah. Who are the polls presented by, Lucas?
They're presented by Two Rivers Ford, who somehow continues to be a part of this foolishness, and we appreciate them.
God bless you.
Yes. You can buy any Ford below MSRP, any non-specialty Ford. Check out Two Rivers. What were we most wrong about from day one of the NFL draft? Big Joe says that Kansas City would show up and show out for the draft. I thought it looked good, man. I thought Kansas City did a nice job.
Well, they made it more about Kansas City than they did the draft, which I think is smart if you're Kansas City.
They're the only defending champion to host a draft.
Oh, no, for sure. Some of the crowd shot, it's like presidential stuff, like with Trump and Obama and stuff like that, at inauguration speeches. People taking pictures of different people's crowd sizes and stuff like that. But I'm here for it because Nashville did it better. Kansas City did a good job. The draft looked fine.
I thought Union Station, where the green room was really cool. Yeah, I liked it.
Although the green room walk went on for an eternity.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole selfie station they have to stop through with their new hat before they go out on the stage, the whole thing.
We were most wrong about Levis, right? Just assuming he'd be a top 5 pick. Like Hooker, too, towards the end.
Hooker, I think, more.
Stop. If I told you right now who's more likely to fall out of the first round, Levis or Hooker, who are you saying?
Okay, you're right.
Yeah, come on. Where does Peter Skoronski...
Stop yelling at me.
No, you don't like it, do you?
What is wrong with you?
Where does Peter Skoronski start for the Titans? Left tackle or left guard? 67% go guard.
Start guard, and then if Dillard sucks at tackle, then make the move.
In training camp, I wonder how long it would take for him to establish.
All it took for Radens was a training camp.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to wait much longer.
Bigger reason for Will Levis falling in the draft. Toe or tape? 90% say tape.
I agree. Coach Mack said the same.
Yeah, but the reports coming out after the first round, like, oh, by the way, people didn't like the toe thing.
Yeah, that's his agent doing damage control.
Yeah, come on. Like, why didn't we see that before?
It's not. How many interceptions in 2 years? A lot.
Which pick made you laugh the most last night? V-Love says this salad, a picture of you in the Titans media room with the most pathetic plate, like 4 leaves and a cherry tomato on top.
I wasn't hungry. I just wanted a little bit of salad. They had a lovely spread for us last night in the media center. I was not really hungry for grilled chicken. I just wanted a little bit of salad, and I had a chocolate chip cookie, and I was good. And a cup of coffee.
Brian says he laughed at the Lions taking Gibbs at the 12th pick.
That we didn't talk about that. We'll probably have Monday to go through like the picks that made us kind of like pick our, just look double take.
And I love Gibbs as a player.
I like Jahmyr Gibbs too. I don't like him there.
They just have all the running backs. I mean, you got to trade DeAndre Swift, right?
You have to. I think.
Yeah. Who is one player you want to see end up on the Titans days 2 or 3? Timmy says Mims out of Oklahoma and Washington out of Georgia.
I would love to see Michael Mayer. I think that is a pick that I would love. I would love Cedric Tillman. I wouldn't hate Jalen Hyatt depending on what. I don't know that I'm crazy about it at 41 necessarily. We'll see what happens, what's around them. But wide receiver, tight end, I wouldn't hate an offensive lineman at some point tonight.
You don't have. Give me one player you believe will be a Titan by the end of the weekend. Can be any round.
Darnell Washington. That feels like that feels close enough in range and a very, very Titans-esque fit. But we'll see.
I'm going to go Tyler Scott, wide receiver out of Cincy.
They love Tyler Scott. Tyler Scott's a good one. I think between the two of them, we'll both be wrong.
Those are the polls.
Okay, very good. That's the show. That's this week. Talk to you not tonight. Tonight's what is today? It's Friday. It's draft weekend. I'll be at St. Thomas Sports Park. I'll be live tweeting and hanging out, providing coverage for you from the facility. Titans Radio on the air at 6 p.m. And Blaine and Mickey got you the rest of the way coming up next.